Hello ladies and gentlemen, here we are in the Magic Gathering world. We're going to be discovering the top 10 bats. With so many bats cards in the Magic world, we're going to discover what are the top 10. And now let's begin with the top 10. And at number 10, we have Sengir bats from Homelands. It's a common. And the reason why it's at number 10, it costs 3 for a 1/2. And if you actually put it in the graveyard and damaged it, it gets a +1/+1 counter. So it's kind of like Death Touch, but with the ever-growing ability, that may hinder the bat to actually be useful in the long run. So in the short term, it might be. So that's why it's at number 10. Now let's move on to number 9. Next we have is Dementia Bat. Now the reason why this was chosen for number 9 is because the Dementia Bat is costs 5 for a 2/2, but has the sacrifice it to target players discard 2 cards. So if you have a lot of discard cards that you want to play before that, this can be very helpful. If he has no cards, then you can use that as a later ability attack, and then alternately discard the 2 cards, which I think is actually be very helpful in the long run after you use all the other ones to discard the player. And now let's move on to number 8. And the next one we have is Marrow Bats. And the reason why this one was chosen from the Commander 2013 Uncommon is that it costs 5 to play, but is the most powerful bat there is. It has a power of 4. Now it has pay 4 life to regenerate Marrow Bats. I don't know how your deck is going to be. Maybe that's helpful or not at that point. But the reason why it made it was because it has the power of 4. Now let's move on to number 7. And at number 7 we have Blind Hunter. The reason why he's at number 7 is because of the Haunt ability. Costs 4 mana though. That's the reason why it's kind of in between the top 10. Because the ability is when Blind Hunter comes into play, or the creature it haunts is put in the graveyard, target player loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. Which is not too bad considering you have this ability into the bat, but at 4 mana I feel like you should be playing other cards other than this bat. But we are talking about the bats, and that's why it's in the top 10. So let's move on to number 6. And at number 6 we have Vampire Bats from the Duel Decks Anthology Garruk versus Lilana series, and it's a common. It costs 1 for a 0/1. The reason why this was at number 6 is because you can use that ability +1/+0 until end of turn. Activate this ability no more than twice each turn. For a short-term purpose, this is very good, so you can bring that right away, and second turn you can pump it up twice or get 2/1 for a second turn and attack if you choose to do that. And that's the reason why it's at number 6. So let's move on to number 5. And next we have is Blight Keeper, which is from the series Ixalan, and it's a common. And it costs 1 for a 1/1. It weathers fruit and fresh light. That's a pretty cool saying, and I like the picture. But the only drawback is it costs 8. Sacrifice Blight Keeper, target opponent loses 4 life, and you gain 4 life. So that's almost like a long-term game if you're willing to use it. Because by the time you can pay 8, he might be close to death. So the reason why this is here is basically for its ability. 1 for a 1/1 flyer, that's actually generally pretty good in the first place. So that's pretty good. Let's move on to number 4. And at number 4 we have Basilica Screecher, who's from the series Gatecrash, and it's a common like most bats. And the reason why it's here is because of, again, like most bats, its ability. It has the ability Extort. Whenever you cast a spell, you may pay white or black. If you do, each opponent loses 1 life, and you may gain that much life. So if you have this with, say, a red-black deck, this can be very, very helpful. You can keep pumping. So it takes 2 damage from, like, say, a shock. Then you use that ability on the bat. That's another one, lose 1 life. And that's why it's at number 4. So we're going to move on to number 3. And at number 3 we have Screeching Bat. It's from the Innistrad series, which was that really weird time in Magic, and it's an uncommon. And the ability for the Screeching Bat is because of its upkeep. It says at the beginning of your upkeep you may pay 4 and it can transform. So it costs 3 for a 2/2, which is not too bad, and then it turns into the Stalking Vampire, which is actually a 5/5 vampire. So that's actually not too bad. You get it the 3/2/2 if you really want it, but then you can transform it into that 5/5 vampire, which is really cool, and that's the reason why it's at number 3. So let's move on to number 2. And at number 2 we have Malakir Familiar. It's from the series Battle of Zendikar, and it's an uncommon. It's at number 2 because it has Death Touch, and believe it or not, in all the Magic cards, not very many bats have Death Touch. So it's here at number 2 because of the Death Touch ability, and it also has +1/+1 whenever you gain life, so you add that to a white deck. That could be actually very helpful. Be a 3/1 flying with that touch. But yes, it's slightly on the expensive side. 3 mana, I would recommend it being at 2, which is still pretty good for this kind of card. So let's move on to number 1. And at number 1, the best of all the bats is Gurmag Swiftwing from the series Khans of Tarkir, and it's an uncommon. It costs 2 for a 1/2, but why it's number 1 is because it has flying, first strike, and haste. That's 3 abilities in a 2 mana card. You can add like Shadow Spear or something to that. That's the reason why it can be very deadly, and the saying is pretty cool. Anything a falcon can do, a bat can do in a pitch of darkness. Wow, that's really good. This is why it's number 1, guys. So I hope you guys enjoyed the top 10 bats, and I hope you have a good day and a good evening, and please continue to watch if you like more.